Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Just kidding. Welcome to your Unit 3 Vocab definition lesson. Okay, so your learning goal for today, bam, is to define these terms. Okay, your terms for Unit 3 are magisterium, interpret, literal, contextual, moral, and last but not least, spiritual. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So the first word to write down in your notes is interpret. Make sure you're writing down the words spelled correctly as well as all parts of their definitions. To interpret means to explain the meaning of something in light of different beliefs, judgments, or circumstances. So basically you're trying to describe what something means and you're trying to figure out its deeper meaning, and you're taking a lot of things into mind in order to figure out what those things actually mean. So the key word is to explain the meaning of those things. Okie dokie. The next word we're going to define is magisterium. Isn't that just an amazing sounding word? Magisterium. We love the magisterium. You should remember this from last semester, but in case you didn't, the magisterium is the official teaching authority of the church, and it consists of the Pope and the bishops. There's Pope Francis, and here's our guy in St. Pete, Bishop Gregory Parks, and they are the successors of Christ and his apostles. You know, those original 12 guys that followed Jesus around, the ones that Jesus said, "Go, teach everyone, I give you authority." So yeah, that's the magisterium. They are in charge of teaching. Now we're going to start defining the types of interpretations that are in the scriptures. The first one is a literal interpretation, like the word literally. And the literal interpretation is an interpretation that's based on the exact wording that's in the Bible. So literally the words that you see is what you would interpret the Bible to actually mean. Another word for this is known as fundamentalism, but we as Catholics are not fundamentalism, so we typically don't interpret the Bible literally.
I literally nothing.
Literally, we are like animals.
I literally have no one else to help me.
Yeah, literally.
He literally grabbed my hand. I'm literally like one of those fat kids that sweat when they get excited.
Okay, thanks Kardashians. Jesus is king, am I right, ladies? Okay. Moving on is the contextual interpretation, which is the one that we as Catholics love to use the most. So the contextual interpretation of scripture, or contextual, means using other information such as culture or history, language, as in the original language something was written in, the setting at the time, so the place, the environment, and different writing styles, including the genres like poetry, etc., in order to interpret the scriptures and what they mean. We as Catholics, like I said, love contextual interpretation because it gives us like a really solid academic and well-rounding understanding of what the scriptures are actually meaning. Okay. Next we have the moral definition. So this is for a moral interpretation of scripture. The moral means, the moral interpretation means that we are interpreting what a passage is saying in terms of what lessons can be taught and how we can live a life that is known as what is right with God. So basically, how can we live a life that God would approve of? So these are things like, for example, the parables that would teach us how to treat our neighbors or how to treat the poor people. Basically any lesson that we can learn about how to become a better person and how we can change the way that we live our lives would be the moral interpretation. Okay, last but not least is the spiritual interpretation. So the spiritual, we're getting very, you guessed it, spiritual with things. So spiritual interpretation, or spiritual, means in the interpretation of the Bible as the authors, which would include the divine author, God, and the human authors, intended it to be understood. The spiritual meaning points to realities beyond the words themselves. So basically, when we're doing a spiritual interpretation, we're trying to get in the mind of God and of the human authors to figure out what it is that they wanted us to know about more spiritual things and about the state of our souls, about our faith, about salvation, etc. So spiritual is a very spiritual type of interpretation, obviously. And understanding the context is always going to help us with spiritual interpretations as well. Well, everyone, at this point, you hopefully paused the video if you needed to, and while you were taking your notes, when you're done, take a picture of your notes, upload it to Google Classroom, and practice on Quizlet. I hope you like this. Bye! Like and subscribe. Just kidding, don't do that. I don't have a channel. Well, I mean, I do, but it's old, so just don't even bother. Okay, love you, bye.